Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I'm glad you're all here. I want to say a quick thank you to all the channel members. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate and thank anyone who comes in to check out my knife, my EDC content. Thank you so much for taking the time. If you're so inclined and you haven't had a chance yet, hitting that subscribe button and that bell notification icon really does help me out. Today, I wanted to feature 10 knives. They're not newer knives, but they all hold one thing in common. Actually, two. They're wonderful gentlemen's folders, i.e. office knives, and they're extremely slicey. They are all very thin in the blade stock, very, very slicey. Starting out, this is the Brad Zinker. It was a Drop collaboration back when Drop was doing collaborations. And this is the Dogtooth. It's a compound ground Wharncliffe, but it is a therapeutically slicey knife. And it's so thin. And then more so, you've got this point that will really get in there and do those detail cuts. Pokey, stabby, quality materials. You've got this nice carbon fiber, fantastic access to the lock bar. You've got a flipper tab. The blade's almost completely concealed. In the handles, you've got titanium handles, a titanium recessed frame lock, and a titanium clip. Nice spoon clip, but a small, nimble little knife. Give you a quick size comparison to a Sharpie and give you a quick measurement. And the Brad Zinker is going to be about a 7 1/4 inch knife. Very thin, very pocket friendly, very agile, and then very, very slicey. So moving on down the list, we come to an older guy that you might be able to get in some different materials, and I'll leave a link if I can find it. But this is the Kizer Genie, which is a liner lock in carbon fiber. This one's S35VN. The ones that are out there now, if they're still out there, are micarta and 154, but the design is the same, which is a very thin, nimble EDC office knife, a fantastic gentleman's knife. It's a front flipper that you can manipulate very well. It's a long, thin knife, so it's going to be longer, probably about the same length as the Para 2. We put it up next to our Sharpie. The Sharpie is just going to be a little bit longer than the handle. The knife itself is going to come in right over 7 1/2 inches, 7 3/4. We'll call it, with a 3 1/2 inch blade. But again, very narrow package, very light because it's just carbon fiber and those steel liners with weight relief. You do have the middle finger flick hole, which I use more than the actual front flipper, even though the front flipper works very well. This knife, again, just thinly ground, therapeutically slicey, and by no means am I saying this is your perfect hard use go out and feather stick knife. I'm saying this is a fantastic white collar EDC in the city type knife, right? It's got a pointed down, sheep's footy, reverse tanto blade, cuts very well, and just everything a knife's supposed to do. Be comfortable to carry, fit in your pocket, make you feel good when you're holding it in your hand, feel like a quality tool, and this old Kizer Genie absolutely does that. It is a little banger, flat ground, slicey as can be, S35VN, and it is number 9. So number 8 is a thumb stud, hollow ground, super, super thin Vanex steel, quiet carry Waypoint, the regular Waypoint. This knife is an all-weather knife. It's a knife that is allegedly rust resistant. I think the liners are done in LB or something, some rust resistant steel, and then the blade is done in Vanex with a thin .0860 blade stock. Handles are going to be nice and thin at .41, so it's going to also be not high. It's going to be under an inch tall, .86, which tells me it's a great ride in the pocket at the office knife. It is, again, a full-size knife. It's going to come in a good bit bigger than the Sharpie, and it is going to weigh in right at roughly, we'll call it 7.5 inches with a 3¼ inch blade. This is a deep hollow grind blade, and you saw how thin the blade stock was. So this knife is no exception to a absolute therapeutic, slicey, laser beam of a knife, regardless of what you're cutting. If you're breaking down cardboard, if you're breaking down food, if you're breaking down rope, if you're breaking down boxes, you name it. This knife is thin, it's heat treated very well, very slicey, very pokey with that drop point, kind of clip point blade, but you do have that deep hollow on that Vanex. L200 may be other liners, but they are truly rust resistant. And this little knife, you could drop in salt water at the beach, pick it up, wash it off, and it's going to be fine. And it is the quiet carry Waypoint. It's a fantastic knife, goes in and out of pocket very well, utilizes that wire clip, and it's going to come in at number 8. Which brings us to number 7. And number 7 is an OG that'll always be in my collection. This is a knife, if y'all know, you know. It was a small batch drop by Dylan Mallory. His first Dylan Mallory design outside of Artisan. Artisan OEM'd it. This is the Phorus. It is one of the most comfortable, lightest, and he's done upgraded renditions of this, but this is carbon fiber, very light nested liners, nice backspacer, titanium handle, S35VN blade steel on a liner lock, flipper only deployment, but it's got this wonderful, wonderful forward finger choil. And it also has this hyper thin, hyper tall blade, which results in a therapeutically slicey, probably one of the sliciest knives in our little top 10 today. But the Phorus is got such a nice base blade on it that you can really put a nice edge on this knife. The steel sharpens up very, very well, and it is just a slicer in every meaning of the way. It's thin. The clip goes in and out of pocket fantastically well. It's very light, so it's a light package. Drop shut action. Middle finger flick or thumb flick. Does not have a flipper tab. Does not have a front flipper. It's just a flicker only. But it's got the Mallory maker's mark on the pivot. That is the only thing you're going to see on the knife itself. I think inside it might have a number, but I'm not sure. But this is the Dylan Mallory Phorus V1. Fantastic, thin gentleman's knife. Probably the largest knife that we've got out here today. And this one is going to come in at right over 7¾ inches with 3½ inch blade. So moving on, we will look at an OG who is still making knives better, now I understand. This is my last remaining and my keeper Asher Knives Titanium Spiro. This knife has evolved since I picked this up a couple of years ago, but this is kind of like a budget Rosie. Its ergonomics are very similar. It's light, it's thin, S35VN blade steel, frame lock, super snappy. You've only got the whole deployment, but it is an absolute slicer. Another one of those tall blade, therapeutically slicey. Very pokey, very stabby. And it's going to be probably right around the same size as your Benchmade bug out. I don't have the bug out here, but I do have the Sharpie. So we'll see that it's about 2 inches longer than the Sharpie, which means that it's going to come in at right under 7.5 inches. So a smaller knife, nice titanium clip, nice titanium handles, very, very sharp S35VN blade, great action, well-made knife. I'm a huge fan in the Asher Spiro, and that will take us to number 5. Number 5 is a unique knife, guys. This knife's almost going to be the same size as the Sharpie closed, but what you'll notice about this one, and why I think this is one of the perfect office knives for me, and one that I carry to the office as much as any, is it shows no blade. It doesn't look like a knife. You've got this flipper tab right here on the back that deploys this kind of Persian blade that's great for getting into tight spaces. It's great for cutting out foam out of different cases, Harbor Freight cases or Now Pack cases. It operates on the compression lock, OEM'd over in Taichung, Taiwan, so it's a Taichung knife. But guys, this is S30V done as well as S30V can be done. Absolutely screaming sharp. That's just going long ways. Very, very sharp, pokey, great little kitchen knife, great little steak knife, great little EDC knife, full-size knife, going to be, you know, a nice full handful, yet it's going to be very, very narrow, and that blade literally is going to disappear into that handle, where to a lot of people that won't even look like a knife. So to get a quick size comparison, it's about 3.5 inches longer than the Sharpie, which means the Ikushi, Spyderco Ikushi, which these are available at Amazon for like 140 bucks. 7.5, right over 7.5 inches. The blade's 3.25. The handle is a solid 4. Very ergonomical grip, because it is so minimalistic. I'm usually not a Persian fan, but this knife, because of its action, because of how light it was, and because how unique that flipper tab was, it was just one that I got early on, and it hadn't left my collection yet. S30V, Spyderco Ikushi, it is a winner. Moving on, we will come to number 4, and number 4 is a fantastic value knife. This is a Maxace Black Mirror. The only titanium knife in this little collection here of 10. But I wanted to get 10 Slicey business EDC knives. The Maxace Black Mirror sold for $142 new. M390 blade steel with this super thin, super tall flat ground blade, titanium handles, titanium backspacer, and titanium clip, all for about $142. Has excellent action, excellent access to the lock bar, has amazing ergonomics, and most importantly, it's sharpened up like a dream after using it for about a year. And it is a stone cold slicer. Sorry about that, guys. Just got in a little short trance. But the Black Mira will definitely cut what it is you need cut. It's a heavier tool. It feels really good in my hand. It's going to be one of the smaller knives. It's going to come in probably in that same range as the Benchmade Bug Out, if I had to guess. It'll be bigger than our Sharpie, which is all I've got out here today. And then we will get our tape measure, and we will learn that the Black Mira is 7.5 inches with a roughly 3-inch blade, 3.25-inch blade, and an interior handle of 3.5. Great sharpening choil, and list price on this is $142, guys, so it is a great buy. If I can find any in stock, I'll link them. If not, they're even cheaper on Blade Binge. Moving on, we come to number 3, and number 3 is another Spyderco, another Taiwan Spyderco. This is the Watu, and this is probably, Watu you ask? It is probably the thinnest Spyderco I have in my collection. So this is modeled after some country's fighting knife, if I understand correctly, or paying homage to it. But as a gentleman's folder, it is extremely light, compression lock, super thin blade stock, very low blade with a little bit of upturned tip. This knife slices like no other. It's the Spyderco Watu. It's also a wicked piercer. It could put a lot of holes in somebody really quickly because it's got such an aggressive upturned point. But you've got that belt satin blade, made in Taichung, Taiwan. This one is 20 CV. I've never been a fan of the Taichung, Taiwan handles, the carbon fiber, but I have seen scales that people do for this knife, make it look really nice. But this is the Spyderco Watu, fantastic knife. It's going to come in on the smaller, medium size, right around 7.25 inches too. It's kind of seeing a theme there. 3-inch blade and a very light, thin, nimble carry. So that brings us to number 2. And number 2 is the disappearing knife, the knife without a pivot. This is the Mr. Designs Zero. Now this knife is about the same size as my PM2. This is a full-sized gentleman's folder, wire clip, very neutral rectangular handle where you have no blade exposed, just this corner that has no jimping, just this clean corner and this button, and then the clip, and then the back side of the pivot, and the M390 blade drop point flies out, bigger than the Sharpie. It's right over 7.75 inches. And the blade is right under 3.5. But the blade is super thin blade stock. So if we were looking at this blade stock, we would see that it is 0.0850. Let's see how it cuts. cuts very well, very sharp, very thin, very little resistance as it tears through the paper or the cardboard. Do I have any cardboard around here? It almost likes heavier stuff. We've got one more knife. Let's save some cardboard for it. So this is the Mr. Zero. Again, it does have a pivot, but it's hidden behind that scale. Wonderful knife that totally conceals itself from being a knife and just, I think, works very, very well. So finally, at number 1, we have the Quiet Carry Drift, the OG Drift in Vanax, titanium, diamond textured, on washers. Understand this one's virtually indestructible. 2, this knife fits my hand as well as any knife I have in my collection. It is not my number 1 knife, but in terms of the fit and finish in my hand and just the comfort of using it, I love this knife. I carry it all the time. It is super slicey. It is a little bit smaller, but it's got a very generous choil. They also make the Quiet Carry Drift, the large drift or L drift, which is a bigger version of this knife, which I personally would have no interest in because this one for me is just that perfect. Bigger than the Sharpie, but it's going to be smaller than those other knives we were looking at. This little guy is going to come in right under 7 inches, right under 7 inches, and it's going to have right at a 3-inch blade, an inside grip about 4 inches to where I like to grab it. But it's very thin, like the Waypoint, except this one's titanium when the Waypoint was G10 and steel. Very thin, very gentlemanly because it's light, it's thin, you don't feel it in your pocket. But we've got the Quiet Carry Drift. We've got the Mr. Zero. We have got the Spyderco Watu. We've got the Black Mirror by Maxace, my favorite Maxace to date. We've got the Ikushi by Spyderco. We've got the Spiro Ti by Asher. We've got the Kizer Genie. We've got the Brad Zinker Dogtooth. We have got the Quiet Carry Waypoint. And finally, we have the Dylan Mallory Phorus. So guys, those are my top 10 office carry, EDC, Slicey. I don't want to weight myself down. I have some cutting to do. I'm not going to go out and beat through some stumps, but I need to cut some cardboard or I've got some things to do. I can recommend all these knives. All I ask you guys is thank you for watching the video. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Most importantly, please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Please look out for each other. Go forward with love in your hearts and choose debate, not hate. I love you all.